Your buyers are leaving Google. They're asking ChatGPT what to buy, who to trust, and who to ignore. And right now, the answer probably isn't you. Frank Sondors is the founder of Salesforge, an Estonian sales automation company. He scaled to 3 million ARR in year one by selling before writing a single line of code. 7 products, 40-person team, and a compound growth model. Most founders wouldn't attempt at twice the headcount.
We look at how many demo bookings and more, etc. we generate from geo versus SEO. And of course, it's not as many as SEO, but the conversion rate is so much higher.
I was just going to ask, does it give you better qualified leads?
Yeah, it does, 100%. I think it's for, I would say it's for everybody the case. I have not heard yet even a single business telling me that the conversion rate is lower on geo and SEO. So as a rule of thumb, let's just say geo outperforms SEO. And there are reasons. I don't want to go into kind of too much of for hours why geo will outperform SEO.
But the challenge he's bringing today isn't about what got him here. It's about what gets him to the next level. His big bet this year, generative engine optimization, ranking in ChatGPT, not Google. He's buying Wikipedia listings, hijacking competitor demos, and feeding LLMs like it's a full-time content strategy.
We definitely, unless somebody is a true expert, we never think we back it up with data. So how do you back it up with data? First of all, you check what happens in your Google Analytics or attribution software you're using. Second thing that I recommend every founder to do is if you're running a software from other businesses to ask, where do you hear about us? And guess what?
Exactly.
ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude. And because ChatGPT says that Frank is the guy, I'm talking about Agent Frank, which is the AI agent that we have named.
I love that one, by the way.
AI SDR in the world. And ChatGPT said it, like OpenAI, the bigger four, they said Agent Frank is the top AI agent.
Is this the smartest GTM play in B2B right now? Or is he lighting money on fire? Let's find out. This is the scale.
All right. So where's Salesforge at today, Frank?
So Salesforge, is a business. It's an Estonian business, actually. Mostly customers in the US. So that's another challenge kind of that we have as a business. What I was called a business that is you can call it a scale-up business, call it a Series A business, call it Series B. Even though we haven't announced any Series A or B, but it is scaling massively. But just kind of, the only numbers that we share as a business is 0 to 3 mil in the first year, which is what we've done. And we're in a 2.5-year-old business right now. So there's a lot more that we do. And we are a business that has 7 products instead of typically 1 product. So what's called a software compound model as a business. But in the baby days before I did over 10 years in sales, I decided to fix one of the problems that we saw in the space, which was too much headcount for building pipeline. And to validate, really, I think what we've done as a business is spoke to a bunch of sort of sales leaders and people in the network to see what the problem was there. And we did manage to sell to 4 companies the solution even before shipping a single line of code.
I love that.
So we always, sell first, maybe not sell first, but validate, sell first, maybe before we ship something. And I think with that mentality, even at this stage and how we compound what's the next product we're building has stayed with us for the last 3 years. Yeah.
At Frank back then, he was giving a quick speech on, we were with one of the accelerators there. And what he said, just really ingrained in my brain, he said, we sold the product before shipping a single line of code. And I was like, he's the MVP. He's the most valuable player. So now that we've introduced Salesforce, which I also thought was a really clever play on Salesforce, I was like, damn, this guy knows what he's doing.
It's called clear strategy, if you think about it. What is that? You poke some other mega brand, with another brand. Because trust me, there were 100 name examples, but I thought, just think of yourself something that doesn't exist in the space. And I thought that the name, the Forge, doesn't exist. You don't know any company that's called the Forge. And because we sell to a lot of salespeople and founders, well, it's Salesforge, and that's how it, popped out. So yeah.
That's how you make SaaS sassy, right?
Yeah, because it's not those people that have been in SaaS for a while know that the Series B, C, whatever, when you start scaling, the brand matters more in the later stages rather than anything that you do, really. So the founder brand, how the company is even named, how you play the marketing creatives even with your name, whatever, all of this matters. So that's why, it's important how you name the company, literally, and say zero, because you know that the brand will ride the wave to 100 million later on. So it's super important.
For sure. And personal branding too, because I know you've been into social selling before it became popular.
Yeah. LinkedIn profile is like 15 years old. So I'm like a dinosaur, according to the LinkedIn gurus. All the LinkedIn gurus have more followers and everything on LinkedIn, but they have not been even on LinkedIn maybe for 5 years. But
Right.
yeah, I created my profile like 15 years ago, when I was a student back in those days. And back in those days, somebody said to you, well, you do need a LinkedIn profile to get a job, etc. This was for employability purposes. And then when I started sales 10 years ago, it was part of the sales game, right? So connecting with people, etc. But yeah, other people treat LinkedIn more of a game and like, let's just get as many followers as possible.
Right.
I treat it more of like truly network, because it doesn't matter what I'm going to do in 5-10 years. I still going to capitalize on my network, later on, whatever I'm going to be doing, So, but yeah, it has paid its dividends, because founder-led sales, guess what, guys, is one of the reasons why we scaled to 3 million the first year, because it has massively helped us on LinkedIn, because I was amplifying my brand to a lot of other former VP sales like myself on LinkedIn, and that resonated, and people want to also solve the same pain that that I had back in the days, which is why they were buying not just Salesforge but other products that we have also in the stack. So,
okay, I have to ask, what's up with the chief bacon officer?
all the Europeans ask me the same question, but if you are a salesperson out of the US, which is the typical persona that we're selling to a lot of salespeople and founders in the US, there's a saying which is, so in Europe, typically you say, I'm the breadwinner, I bring home the bread. But in the US, you bring home the bacon. Let's bring home more bacon. So on the personal level, bacon means for a salesperson is actually commission. And that commission is typically more than your base salary, more than what you typically bring, the fixed part of component. So that's the commission. That's the bacon that you're bringing home on an individual basis. But the bacon in front of, for a startup founder or company is the revenue. We bring home more revenue. And again, when you're on LinkedIn and you're starting a company, you're selling to a lot of salespeople. What is the one component that you can have cultural affinity around? And that could be emoji, a name, something. So, and I decided it has to be bacon.
I see you put your money where your mouth is in terms of positioning and branding. I mean, that's the game today, right?
Yeah, and I think it's getting tougher and tougher with more startups, easier being able to easier build software on places like Lovable, etc.
Right.
Being able to stand out and have your own swimming lane positioning, yes, it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. But it is super important because it'll pay its dividends. Brand marketing and branding is one of the things that are actually not good at as startup founders, like massively underutilized, because you need a piece of creativity. You need to have deep knowledge on your ideal customer, what will resonate with them. Because, I know that my customer, my ideal customer is US, and I know that bread will not resonate with them, but bacon will, And so you need to know these sort of things. And you also need to be a bit ballsy. Ballsy meaning, sure, I got to put bacon on my LinkedIn profile, bacon in my headline, bacon everywhere, essentially. But you will also deter some people, let's say the vegetarians. And that's fine. It's like politics. You can't please everybody. It's not.
Yes.
So yeah,
I think especially that also everybody not just using AI for coding, but for content and really everything on planet Earth, there is a lot of like sterile stuff, because what all of the LLMs do is they just make you so polished it hurts. Like it literally removes all the personality unless you train it to have the same personality as you. So I really appreciate the bacon touch.
And a lot of other people do. And I can give you an example of what actually happens on a daily basis. People literally connect with me and say, I'm connecting with you because I love bacon. That's all. So if somebody wants to generate a lot of followers on LinkedIn, meaning you are ICP, that's like a little growth hack, The fact that there's a bacon emoji and a lot of people love the bacon. I also love the bacon. I'm still a sales guy. I'm truly sales in and out, and I can connect easily. And I also, all about bringing bacon home. And I also want to do that for my peers, That's why I'm building this software, and everything, So, yeah, and I highly, recommend everybody. And I even remember there was this little LinkedIn bootcamp that I was in Portugal last year, and we were talking about how to improve your LinkedIn profile, etc. And I said, guys, none of you have an emoji in the profile. What is this? Emoji is one of the easiest hacks to have on LinkedIn, because imagine, we're going to have this podcast and you'll forget my name. You'll forget what company I am. Well, it will be difficult because it's very close to Salesforce. So it will give you a bit of a recall there. But one thing that you'll have the strongest recall with is the visual component or what you associate.
That is very true.
I will be bacon, trust me. And you'll think of me like Mr. Bacon. That's what people think typically. And fun fact, if you're going to go now on LinkedIn and if you're going to type into the search bacon, I should be number one result, by the way. And so people will forget my name.
You're dominating bacon on LinkedIn. That
In the
needs to
world.
be like a milestone.
I mean, maybe not just on LinkedIn, but maybe in the world. And that's where Chief Bacon Officer comes from. That's where a lot of jokes come from. Guess what? In our Slack, the payments channel is called Bacon. The official name of our office is called Bacon Forge. You can find our office on Google Maps if you just type in Bacon Forge.
Wow.
So it's not just a gimmick on LinkedIn. You breathe truly in and out on Slack, Google Maps, you name it. I even bought on Amazon, somebody bought me on Amazon recently, a bacon rasher costume.
I was surprised not to see any bacon in your backdrop right now.
Sometimes I was thinking, should I come into a podcast with my bacon rasher costume right now? I was thinking to do that. See the inspiration.
You should have like bacon neon sign behind you.
Yes. So it's actually the neon sign behind me is called Bacon Forge. But so the inspiration for a costume. So why do you do these things? So I'll give you an example. Let's say I went to a conference last month. The conference is Disaster, based in London. And imagine you go to a room of like 500 people, etc., and you will dress up as somebody which represents your brand. It could be company brand. And there was this founder who works for a company called Kenobi, and he dressed up in this Kenobi costume, and he went to a conference, and he generated so much presence on LinkedIn. There's a lot of people took pictures of him and went on LinkedIn and talked about him, and generated so much buzz, visibility, leads and everything for him. So like these kind of components are super important, including having a cost for the thing that you're preaching on the internet, and then turning up for an offline event, because there'll be 10, 20, 30 people that'll take a picture of you, go on LinkedIn and say, I met this crazy guy at Disaster who had this, amazing costume. So you have to
clever. Yeah, that's why it's like you cannot be average, because average means slow death, really.
Yes. And I would say, I'll give you a couple of things maybe, which is totally opposite of normal or average that I did, let's say, on LinkedIn. So I think when you scroll through your LinkedIn, typically, you see a lot of growth and solving pains and blah, 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 a lot of stuff like that on LinkedIn. And sometimes think about what is the true, what's called scroll stopper on LinkedIn. And this is like a news which is like crazy, I got fired, or something else. And I'm going to talk about the second part in a bit. Last year, if somebody follows me for long enough and you have been there around on April Fools, I announced that I was fired by my investors. And that idea we had in mind, the day prior, during the evening with the co-founders, we thought to ourselves, damn, it's April's Fools. Like on April's Fools, you can literally do anything and say anything on LinkedIn. And we thought, what's the craziest thing? And there's a lot of sort of CEOs that were getting fired, ISDR company CEOs, etc. There's a lot of bad press in TechCrunch and everything about what's happening in the sales technology market. And I thought to myself, what if I get fired? That's going to be amazing. And you can say that on April's Fools. So I did exactly that. Disabled the comment section as well on LinkedIn for that particular post. And a lot of people believed me. And literally in a few hours, I've got like 500 plus DMs from different people, including existing investors that did not know we're going to run this stunt. So like, that's what's called really going crazy, including internally, I was even disabled Slack. So even the employees internally believe that I also got fired.
My God. Did you make it to the LinkedIn lunatics on Reddit to that?
Yesterday was the case. But yeah, yesterday I had the post on LinkedIn where I always test like these crazy cold email copies. And the latest one I tested was where I related to a world event, political event or something happened.
Oh my God, I saw it yesterday.
Yes, don't get caught like Maduro. And guess what? A lot of people had opinions whether it was a good copy, bad copy, or whatever. But guess what? 99% of companies will never have the balls to do anything like this. And we have a lot of balls in the Forge to do anything we want to do. Of course, we're not going to cross the boundaries or let's call it legality, whatever. We'll push creativity to the max. And that's because people are shy. Doesn't matter whether you're from Europe, US, whatever. People just don't have the risk appetite to go wilder, let's call it, in terms of the creativity on the copy, how you do things. One other example you mentioned on LinkedIn when it comes to creativity and kind of being a scroll stop on how to increasing brand recall. The different, because the feed is, a lot of people have a fatigue with the feed. They're bored. And what people need, let's say, not just LinkedIn, but generally in life, is what's called edutainment. And that means combining the educational component with entertainment, so that when they consume the content of the business, your company, the problems that you're solving, etc., they enjoy the consumption of that content very much. What a lot of people do on LinkedIn is they just educate the audience without the any component. The consumption of that content is much, much quieter. So we try and do this for skits, the Market Hobby skit, the Star Wars skit. There's another one coming up even next week, again, another Star Wars skit and stuff like that. But we will do these sort of things to spice things up. And the goal generally is try and go viral every month. If it will happen, great. If it doesn't, well, it doesn't happen. You can't have control on the algorithm, of LinkedIn and stuff like that, how things are, etc. But you want to make sure that you are usually not boring on LinkedIn. You have a personality. You're somebody. You are a person differently, with bacon or without, doesn't matter. But don't do
you gotta get balls to catch the bacon.
Yes, and only there's a saying also, and you probably also know this saying as well. There's a saying in some of the European countries, and I always reference the same saying: if you don't risk, you don't drink champagne. If you want to drink a lot of champagne, you have to take a lot of risks. And in the corporate world, I then reference Google. So the reason why Google grows so fast is because Google tries to optimize for as many winning tests as possible. But to win one test, you need to run 10 tests. You need to be willing to fail a lot to actually get enough winning tests. And that's kind of similar thing here. I don't know what works, what doesn't work, but I need to be risking all the time. Every month we have tests which have what's called moderate high risk, or having a backlash or something, me jumping in the bathtub. How do you think about it politically, whatever, And then there are some tests that we will run, and we cannot talk about them on LinkedIn because it crosses the line, really. This is not something for LinkedIn, but it's still a test.
Oh, the challenge that you're bringing to the scale room today is the generative engine optimization.
Yes.
And what I would like to start with is, how do you see it today amongst all of the other experiments that you're running? Is it more like a long-term strategic bet, or is it more like, let's see if we can hack it today?
It's a more strategic bet. If you look at some macro level data, you can see the ChatGPT share of total search or total user kind of activity is transitioning to ChatGPT or LLMs bit by bit. But it's nowhere near close to the big behemoth of the Google search, right? But it is increasing.
So are we talking about like universal or your data?
Both.
Okay. So yours is like in line with the trends, overall trend.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we are sort of an outlier, etc. Like from a geo standpoint specifically, so generative engine optimization. But just to maybe kind of give let's call it a bit of a glimpse in kind of general structure and kind of how we think about geo, because you need to understand the structure of the company. So there's the Forge, and the Forge has 6 websites. 6 websites, we have 4+ million pages. We have a lot of pages, a lot of programmatic SEO. We think about when we build content with geo in mind, and our big bet this year is the geo bet. It's not the SEO bet. We believe that for every hour that we're going to spend, or for every dollar we're going to invest, the highest ROI will be geo, not the SEO bet. SEO has a lot more saturations. The way you do things there is through backlinks and many other things. It definitely can be done, and we can massively scale. The goal to scale, for example, SEO this year is 3 to 5x in terms of traffic. It's a very attainable goal, and we can do it. And there's a system in the playbook, maybe etc. how to do it. For geo, you don't have a playbook. There are a lot of people saying what needs to be done, how to do it. There's a lot of experts that are popping up. And you need to triangulate sort of the inputs from different people, towards software is OpenAI and the various things, and make your own mind up. How does OpenAI think about who to show up on geo? So my advantage over any other of my competitors is actually I used to work at Google. And so there's a lot of internal data or things that were shared to me back in those days, over the 2.5 years, that made me think about how does actually search work? How has the search maybe changed, etc.? And of course, search just changes a lot. Geo will also change massively. GPT will change, and OpenAI will change, different models will kick in, etc. So the outputs are also different, and they're also different for different individuals. The outputs are personal to that person in ChatGPT, right? Depending on what they searched in the past and many other things. But your goal is to increase the share of search, not just on Google, but also in ChatGPT. So today, I would say we're ranking as top 10 out of 100 plus competitors. So we're not doing a bad job. We're doing
Considering the space you're in, which is like a true red ocean, being 10th is like actually a really good achievement.
Yes, but the problem is that the top, I would say the top probably 3 to 5 players own a huge chunk of the market. Huge. So that's how it is. So the geo, so all this specifically, by the way, specifically OpenAI insights. So OpenAI prioritizes companies that have strong presence and will over-index massively on that. Unlike Gemini. Gemini is more, let's call it fair, or distributes more across many providers. Who to show, when to show, etc. But OpenAI massively over-indexes the top players in terms of whoever does the marketing like really well. So the massive sort of gap between player 10 and let's say player 5, massive gap. So for us to get to 5, a lot of investment has to happen this year. But if you get to top 5 by the end of the year, I will be super happy. So what does a typical founder think about it now? So one of the things that people will tell you is you need to be mentioned in a lot of different on the internet. The bit is like we need a lot of backlink. We just need a link. Sure, they could be mentioned, but like mentions matter more, or people writing about matters more. Listicles matter most. Let's say top 10 cold email software, and there's a listicle. If you're not in that listicle, you will suffer from a geo standpoint. So you want to be essentially top 10 in every listicle on the internet or space that you're known for. And that's just an example.
Because that signals authority to them,
Yes.
right?
Yes, that's just one of the things. The other things is what's being discussed on public forums like Reddit, etc. And again, it's a mention. But these sources do have credibility because whoever is being mentioned the most in the right threads, again, that boosts significantly your ability to rank in ChatGPT. Now, there's one little tidbit I'm going to share, which is something that I highly recommend most people to invest the time in, is to be listed on Wikipedia. We got listed on Wikipedia this week. Salesforge is listed on Wikipedia as of this week. And our geo visibility has massively jumped. So if somebody is in the geo topic, you know that Wikipedia is a top 3 source for LLMs. So being on Wikipedia is paramount if you want to crack the geo game. Most companies do not know how to get in Wikipedia. And the moderation team of Wikipedia is one of the toughest in the world. Getting on the Wikipedia, your chances are very slim, less than 1%. So to get on Wikipedia, you need to get what's called the Wikipedia agency. And that's all they do. They try and get you on Wikipedia. That's it.
All right. Not bad for a business model. But I think what's worth kind of going back to is usually a question that I get from the founders that I work with who would ask me, okay, is it worth it for us to invest into geo? And I usually answer with the question, is this the right channel for you? Like, how are your users finding you today? So I'm going to ask you this question right now. Is that basically, you said a strategic bet, but is it based on the traction that you're already seeing from this channel? Or is it more like, I think we're going to get more users from there? Because again, I'm going to go back to one of the other statements that you made. Technology is always changing, right? So you always got to optimize for the algorithm. But one thing that is not going to change is the user behavior. User psychology. As in, I'm a millennial, so I'm at this point never going to go back to the, Googling things. I'm always asking ChatGPT at this point. There is very little that I actually go to Google for. So is that a typical behavior for your ICP, or is it more like we think this is where they're going to go?
We definitely, unless somebody is a true expert, we never think, we back it up with data, I would say. So how do you back it up with data? First of all, you check what happens in your Google Analytics or attribution software that you're using. Second thing that I highly recommend every founder to do is, if you're running a software or some other business, is to ask, where do you hear about us? And guess what we get? ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude. And because ChatGPT says that Frank is the guy, or actually I'm talking about Agent Frank, which is the AI agent that we have named. So Agent Frank is like a top AI SDR in the world. ChatGPT said that, like OpenAI, the big authority said Agent Frank is the top AI agent for outbound. The user will like, okay, well, I'm going to have to go check it out because OpenAI said it. A lot of people ignore these sources where it comes from, actually. They just look at what OpenAI says and they just go and check out Salesforge and book a demo, etc. So, we look at how many demo bookings, MPO, etc. we generate from geo versus SEO. And of course, it's not as many as SEO, but the conversion rate is so much higher.
I was just going to ask, does it give you better qualified leads?
Yeah, it does, 100%. I think it's I would say it's for everybody the case. I have not heard yet even a single business telling me that the conversion rate is lower on geo than SEO. So as a rule of thumb, let's just say geo always outperforms SEO. And there are reasons. I don't want to go into kind of too much. We could talk about for hours why geo will always outperform SEO.
But what I'm trying to get to is basically like the chain of decision making, because that's what I would like the listeners to take away. Like, this is how you make decisions on the distribution channels.
Yeah. So Google Analytics attribution software, check in HubSpot, where do you hear about us? And then when you jump on the call or demo, where do you hear about us? Oh, Frank, I was just asking what's the best AI agent for sales, and I saw you and I decided to check you out. Okay, cool. So just like, it doesn't matter what it is, geo or some other channel, but always ask your customers where to hear about us. It's very important that you scale your company. You need to know where is the bacon coming from, and then 10x that. And if you have no signals of other channels, you kill those channels. Unless you have a way to justify that this channel is what.
Did you have to kill some channels at some point?
Always, yes. The first channel I killed, in fact, in my first year, was TikTok. We killed TikTok. We thought that, okay, TikTok's taking off. Maybe it's a platform for B2B. We tested for 6 months, killed it. Generated one lead.
Oh, wow. But I've heard, obviously B2C, like B2C even software is doing really good on TikTok.
Yes, but not B2B. Nobody has cracked B2B. I would say 99% of B2B companies have not cracked TikTok for B2B. Unless somebody, please, if you have cracked B2B for TikTok, please ping me. I'll reactivate TikTok. So when we killed TikTok, we didn't do YouTube. So we thought, okay, if we're killing a platform which is for videos, what's the next platform? Well, it's YouTube. Let's go to YouTube. So YouTube felt like a dinosaur to TikTok back then. But guess what? YouTube has worked and outperformed TikTok like 1000x because there was no leads. And guess what? YouTube organic today is, for us, and I think for a lot of other businesses, top 3 converting channel out of all channels you'll have in Google Analytics. So have a look in your kind of conversion data. Yeah, it makes sense for a lot of business because if you explain how to do things, how to write an email, how to do outreach, etc., people want to learn. And because you tell them how to do that, then you go and sign up, check out the software, etc. Right? So, and from a geo standpoint, there's other things you're trying to do, right? So one thing is dimensions. But you're trying to influence geo in other ways. How could you do that? So one of the things that happens in geo, here's also another hack maybe, is that geo, so ChatGPT references videos in their output. So here's a little hack. So imagine I will type in, what are the top 5 softwares to do X? And in top 5 results, Salesforge is not in there, but it will mention all 5 of my competitors. But the source that reviews these competitors is us. So what we have built for our space is the closest thing to G2. We are a sales software sort of reviewing business, media business. That's our media arm of it, let's go that way. And we thought also, what would generate this value? Well, if we would review all the different softwares. And I'll give you an example. I'm not going to mention who the company is, but I'm going to call them the number 1 AI agent company in the world. This number 1 AI agent company in the world did not have a live demo anywhere on the internet. And all people were curious to see how does the software look like. So we had a way to get the video of how the software looks like. So we package that into a nice video and put it on YouTube. And yes, over 10,000 over the year. So essentially, when you're Googling this competitor plus demo, we are number one, the only one. Nobody else had access to footage apart from us, and we were their competitor. So two things happened. We generated them. We heard over 100 demos to our competitor as we were showcased. However, part of the traffic also went to us, and we own search. And then in Geo, when you were asking for a demo or like reviews, etc., we popped our YouTube video pop. And so essentially, think like this is what I tell other panels. How about you kind of review your competitors and how you stack up them? You will do the review. And so it's not just an SEO article; it's also a YouTube video on that, right? So the other thing that to think about Geo as well, by the way, which is what we do a lot as part of our content game, but it also impacts Geo, is imagine I'm going to do a webinar, a podcast, anything that it's a video app, right? I'm going to put the YouTube on the LinkedIn, etc. But you can repurpose that same piece of content into a blog post. And so there is a tool called Video to Blog that we use as well. But we produce a bunch of things, typically 2 to 4 per month. So quite a lot. So we try to provide a lot of value. We're going to call this top 1% content. We try to provide a really great content, but unfortunately it's only in a video format. And I'm trying to use the same effort that I invested my time, maybe, or spending things over an hour, but it took me maybe 10 hours to put it together. I will also kind of package it into a proper post. So it ranks maybe for Google, Bing, etc. But also I'm trying to influence ChatGPT, because I think what ChatGPT is looking for, and that would be any sort of data behemoth, or it's called the unique insights, unique data sets, unique stuff. And I'm trying to provide these sort of unique insights with different companies on what I'm doing. I'm typically doing it with another company. So I'll give you an example of how I'm doing this. So the next webinar is with a company called, it's called Company Enrich. And one of the sweet spots, and what they're really good at, called providing what's called lookalike data. They provide you data on similar companies to this company. It's a very specific data, but you can generate a lot of leads from that data and do many other cool. Barely anybody talks about it on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or many other places. Actually, there's not that much content about this piece, but it's super valuable. So I've done myself. First of all, let's dive deep into the topic, because there's a lot of value on this data. I explain everything, drive a lot of leads, customers, whatever. I'm also going to package this super valuable webinar into a blog post, how to generate leads from lookalike data, right? And it's going to be a very, very long, fast article. And my hope is that I'm feeding Geo on that. I'll give another example. It's kind of similar. There was a webinar on how to build, what are the top, it's called Clay workflows. So Clay is a company that does data orchestration. You can list and everything. A lot of people are struggling to figure out what are the things I can do with Clay to make the biggest impact on my business. So a couple months ago, I did a webinar with, my name is Bill, a agency called Salesforge. And we decided, let's talk about Clay and the top workflows that businesses in the world implement. And again, the focus is exactly the same. Hey, we're going to drive a lot of people to the webinar. So 500 people signed up. And we gave a ton of value out for free, without no expectations, anything like that. We then package the same webinar in a blog post called Top Play Workflows Implemented in 20. So when somebody searches ChatGPT, what should be the top workflows I should implement this year? We're hoping that ChatGPT picked up our article and the 30 use cases for workflows we covered. There's a lot of them. So it should be very, very in-depth. So yeah, that's what you're trying to think about. What are the LLMs looking? They're looking for depth in terms of the content. What's the best piece of content to satisfy the user's, the intent? And that's what we're trying to do, right? And trying to essentially not just have a ton of content, but not a ton of valuable content, but like a lot of valuable content that goes into a lot of depth and feeding LLM. It's also part of our strategy this year.
If we go back to the strategic level, what risks do you see associated with investing into this channel right now?
Risks. I mean, there's risk in everything you do in life, right? So it's I like the way to think about risk is like you have to associate that to something else. SEO is the closest thing in terms of risk. So what are the risks in SEO? Is that you invest a lot of money upfront and doesn't pay off. It's similar to geo. You have to invest a lot of money upfront. We're investing even more this year. I just authorized a big budget for one of my guys to go and get a lot of mentions on the internet. By the way, somebody wants to make Salesforge, we can pay you. So, like we have budgets today for mentions instead of backlinks. Typically, you pay for back, and for back you pay somewhere between $100 to maybe $500 for one backlink. That's very normal in the market. Apparently, the mentions cost a lot more. Apparently, the mentions cost at least $300 to $600 to mention you in the article. So it's actually more expensive actually to ramp up mentions on the internet because you need to ingest that brand, not just mention them, but you have to talk about it. So there's more work than just popping a backlink, maybe on some article. So the investments are being higher, but you can, as I said, you can justify the investments because the conversion rate is higher from geo. Because price is all relative. Right? If I'm investing more per unit, that is mentioned versus the backlink, but the conversion rate is 2x versus geo. Yeah, why not? Also considering the fact that more and more users have people transition probably over time from Google search over to ChatGPT. So I expect actually, apart from the conversion rate, be more or less the same over time, maybe slightly better. But I also expect the volume to go up, even if I don't do anything, because the share of geo will increase versus Google bit by bit. But you want to be one of the first ones optimizing as much as you can in the first year, 2, 3, to have the advantage over anybody else in the space, including new competitors that maybe pop up in our space. And I will have, my base of mentions built up on the internet where everybody talks about Salesforge, right? So, because displacing then Salesforge will be much more difficult later on. So yeah.
So basically, it's a lot of upfront investment into the payday that's gonna come later, or might also not come at all, because again, this is also one of the channels where it really depends on what your competitors are also doing.
Yes, and you can't control competitors, but because you have competitors, you need to move ultimately. Don't think the competitors are whatever the data says in 2025. Just assume all competitors are doubling down on XYZ, right? They're doing the planning. Many of them also going to do geo, etc. But you're looking for things where you can have, for the amount of time and the money that you invest, where you can have the highest impact. That's really how you should be looking at the business, right? And I think geo is just closely correlated to SEO. Everybody needs that you need to work on. It takes time, blah, blah, blah. But some things, like I said, we launched on Wikipedia, this week. We were already mentioned on ChatGPT immediately, like the same day when it was launched. So some things, happen instantly, literally, in terms of the results. And then you will see instantly more leads coming through. And you're like, where are they coming from? Oh, wow, geo has increased by 20% week over week. What happened last week? Well, we launched on Wikipedia. I guess that was a mention that led to more leads coming through. That's one of the reasons, right? But also there's a lot of people are coming back. So you have to do what's called year over year baseline analysis. But yeah, that's how we kind of, think about geo, because, it's still, a space that hasn't been sort of conquered, honestly. This space hasn't matured. It didn't reach the edge of maturity. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So, for example, ChatGPT still has not released something similar to a search console that Google has. ChatGPT still doesn't have that, right? That's why all these things are popping up there, like Peak and other tools are popping up that give you the analysis, but they give you just a glimpse, on what's happening in there, like a sample data, essentially, similar to companies like SimilarWeb, etc. But I would say, that you want to get access to what does ChatGPT say, and we're waiting for that to be released. And I think that will come out. And then we're going to see true data. What's our share of all the, things happening there. And we're not top 10, we're maybe top 3, or maybe to the top 20, or whatever. It's okay. I just need to know what is my rank right now. And then I'm going to try and figure out what I'm going to do to increase my share. And yeah, that's how I think about things, on the geo front.
So when it comes to this, I think we can still call them risky upfront investments. Do you have a risk mitigation strategy attached to that? As in, when do we pull the plug on continuing to invest into this if we see that it's not working?
Good question. So there are, I think, channels that you never pull the plug. So geo SEO should be the channels that you never pull the plug. The only thing that can happen is you can invest more, is my take. Because, I mean, if there's no leads coming through, then yes, you pull the plug, but it's just not the thing. There's always leads coming from SEO and geo for many, many businesses out there. There's not a channel that you pull the plug. It's like the only channels that you pull the plug on is like something like Google Ads. You spend money on paid media. You spend a lot of money, thousands of dollars we spend, on Google Ads every single month, and we generate 0 leads. That's something that you would pull a plug because it has consistent cost, and we see nothing because you put $1 in and you expect $2 out, $2 back or $3, but whatever that is, right? Or even $1 back. Actually, 1 to 1 is good. Actually, I invest $1, in spending on Google Ads, and I get $1 in MRR. That's good unit economics. Just to let you know. And if that happens, up and down every month, keep on spending. If nothing's happening, so I typically say if you're testing something, any channel doesn't matter what it is. So it's a channel that's something that you want to test, like a Google Ads, paid media, cold emails, doesn't matter, whatever. All these channels, it's something you can test, and you decide to keep or not. You should be testing it for at least 2-3 months, as an example. I'll give you an example of our latest test that we're running, and it's what's called an outbound test. It's nothing to do even with inbound. An outbound test is essentially a test where we are reaching out to very, very specific, what we call creme de la creme ICP, so ideal customer profile that we're looking to reach out. But we're doing that through WhatsApp. So I would describe WhatsApp outbound. And it's not a software that can help you to do that, but we have what we call a growth hack that we have built together, and we'll try and understand if we're scaling this to X number of velocity scale, etc. What is the return we're getting, and what's the experience that the users are getting? Is it brand damaging or not? What is happening in that channel? But whenever you're running any form of test, you should be at least committing to 2 to 3 months, because you'll launch a test in month 1, and things will not go according to the plan. And then you're gonna optimize month 2. You'll change some things, and then you'll optimize again in month 3. And then you're going to arrive to some conclusion. But you need statistical significance in terms of, did you actually process enough leads? Are we talking about 10,000 leads processed? Is there, a mass of people that you reached out to, and then you got some, results back, replies, or something happened, etc. And what does it mean in terms of meetings booked, pipeline, and revenue, etc. And that's just an example of a test, but we run many tests. We typically want to run 5 to 10 tests a month. That's how many.
That's a number.
Yeah. So you'll have an appetite, and I recommend that to everybody. What's the appetite for experiments? And the default answer is always yes, always on. We're always experimenting. And then the question is how many experiments? And then gives me an idea how serious you are. So if somebody says to me, I'm running 5 to 10 experiments every month, you have respect. I have a lot of respect for businesses like that. If nobody says but together, the whole company is 40 plus employees. It's like 50-50 split go-to-market versus product engineering. But every month we have this literally Google spreadsheet, which says about which tests we're gonna run, and we go and run these tests.
But I think just to point out one very important thing that you just mentioned a little bit on the sidelines, you said it's not only about measuring the results, this is my translation, but also measuring the trade-offs, as in, are we getting any brand reputation damage, etc. Because it's not only about the people that you're able to close, it's also the amount of people that you're potentially pissing off with a certain strategy. And sometimes I've seen founders actually completely disregarding the trade-offs and saying like, no, we're getting leads. I'm like, okay, but how many people are actually never going to talk to you again because of this? So you're potentially damaging future relationships with the customers, not because like maybe they were just not ready to buy from you today, but they're still a potential customer, but you pissed them off because you went into their, let's use your example, WhatsApp.
I'll give you an example which is damaging. So we talked about it. It's the Maduro email. Maduro email is an email that is definitely brand damaging. Yes, it's brand damaging, and somebody said to me, please never reach out to me again. And I think, the way you think about risk is, sure, you'll put off some of the people in the market. The thing is, they will forget about you after, a few months anyway. One of the things I just want to say here is like, you can tolerate risk when you have a large TAM like we do. We have millions of businesses to reach out to. Sure, some people will say no to us. Like, we know that we're not going to acquire every single customer on the planet. Let's be honest with that. I'll be happy if I can acquire 1% of B2B businesses that want to generate meetings in the world. I'll be $1 billion company by then. But yes, I will not please everybody, but I want to, my goal is to generate what's called learnings every month in the business. I need to know what works, what doesn't for this business and this ICP that I'm trying to target. And unless I'm going to run tests with X risk level, I will never know. And not knowing is the worst thing you can have in your business. It's very important that you invest in what are the learnings we had last month, let's go that way. You have to be in this mindset. What did we learn? We learned that we run 10 tests, 3 work, 7 didn't. We deprecated these 7 tests, or we decided to change them. Like, it's a very normal conversation to be having in a fast-growing company. Otherwise, you're not serious.
Very true.
Seriously.
I think it's a very healthy approach. Speaking of approaches, seasons on my show change, but there is one thing that stays constant, and that's the final question I ask of all of my guests. If you could go back in time and talk to your own self 5 or maybe even more years ago, is there one truth or one learning that you know today that you would have shared with your younger self back then?
I get this question asked actually a lot, if I'm very honest. And the weird answer is nothing really comes to mind. Because what I thought back then, it was realized, including failures. I thought that if I'm going to run this test, it will fail. And it actually did. I think I'm the type of person that typically says, let's go big or go home. Every time I'm thinking to myself, I didn't go big enough. It had to go bigger, faster, better. So my regrets, where I want to tell that to my former self, I wasn't ambitious enough. I'm already ambitious, but I wasn't still ambitious enough. We're talking about even bigger scale. And I think this is always doesn't matter. Next month, you got to say exactly the same thing. It was just not good enough this month. It could have been significantly bigger. We did not run enough tests, for example. It's one of the ways to look at it. The reason why we didn't grow by a bit more is because we did not put another 5 tests into the oven to test them out where they work. Velocity we were slightly slower. We would have been much faster and learned a lot more. But the problem is with this and going bigger, you need to have the right team. And I think this I would have that to tell that to my former self, is to find the right people to go on this journey. So one element which is very hard to control, because really to scale a really great company, and this may be the final bit I want to say, one is the process, technology, and the people. And the only thing that you cannot control really well is the people component. This is where you have this. Every founder will know this, by the way. The biggest problem in the business, when it comes to succeeding or not succeeding, or going fast or not, is the people component. And I did not know how painful that is today. So that's something that I told to my former self 3 years ago, that one of the things maybe double down on is the people topic and find more apples, let's call it, rather than bad. Because there will be a lot more bad apples along the journey. But you need a lot more good apples coming onto the journey and joining you on the ride. Because to a certain scale, you can scale this company, but you cannot scale beyond that. You need the right team. And that's bites.
Really like that. Basically, don't be scared to be audacious, like go bigger, but be cautious with the people that you bring on the journey.
Yeah, because later on, scaling to 10 million, 20, 30, 40, 50 million, it's the team that scales. You have less control, and the success comes from the team. And being able to assemble the team is skill, luck, everything. There's a lot that goes into that, and there's no science to this. But assembling stellar team, a team that can scale to $1 billion company, yeah, a lot of things happen. Even the locations in the world where I am, there's find the right people to build a team. I'm not in the Bay Area. It bites me. So that could be another learning. I should have gone to the Bay on day 0.
You gotta believe it. There is nothing happening here. It's a bay, but it's the wrong bay.
The problem is my wife won't let me. I already proposed that to her 20 times. Even last week, I said, honey, it's time. I have to move to the Bay. Things will get faster, bigger. And I said to her, what if, there's $1 million on the table here or whatever, She's like, money is not a problem. I don't care about money. I was like, okay. So nothing works. The money doesn't work, and nothing will change my mind to move from Europe to the US. Yeah.
What nationality is she?
Lithuanian, actually. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're a little bit more. They want to be closer to the base.
Closer to parents, closer to whatever they know. Yes. We used to live in London, but we have 2 kids. So she really hated the idea of raising kids in London. So she nagged me into moving to her part of the world, and I gave in. My old boss used to say, "Happy wife, happy life." That's exactly what happened. But the problem is that I'm not necessarily in the rightest place to be building a behemoth of a business, because you need the other people and congregating around these. So you need to be in London, SF, New York, whatever. So it does put you in the ass later on a fair bit. So yeah.
How old are your kids?
10 and 7.
So you're out of the toddler stage.
Out of the toddler stage, at the stage where, they can be, take care of themselves a bit as well, right? But question that pops in my mind every single year: at which part of the world do you need to be in to be actually going at the speed and the scale that you want to be going at? I do believe geography does matter, actually, personally. A lot of people will say
I
it's not a way.
totally agree with you, but I think then it also there is a place for your personal priorities to come in, because as much as I keep also nagging my husband to move somewhere else, I also do think that our kids who are very small, 3 and 5, are doing really great here. So it's like there is always a trade-off, and at this point in my life, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let the trade-off to be the scale of my business, and then maybe I can flip it. Not too far from now.
I'm in the other
hopefully.
mindset, Yes, you typically
Exactly.
sacrifice one or the other a bit. I'm in the mindset of that, you have to do business for a few years and scale that up before you, get hire the lieutenants into your business to run your business for you.
Very true.
And but yeah, no, I'm sure things will pan out. Just the challenge that you're sort of fighting with, especially on a yearly basis.
I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Audio.